Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening from where you're joining in from. I am Celine, the community manager, and I'm joined here with August.
Hey, welcome everyone.
Welcome back to Office Hours, where we answer all your technical questions. I already see that there's some people on the chat with questions. I'm so excited to answer them today. Thank you for joining our live. But August, how's your day today? Anything fun happening with your life?
Yeah, they stopped using a jackhammer to chip away the sidewalk, so I'm getting so much more sleep these days. It's great.
But we will still hear the garbage truck because it's now
Oh
part of
yeah,
the game.
the garbage truck will come, but it won't come close enough to where you'll hear it because they're working on a sidewalk.
Oh, new addition. Nice.
This is a holiday episode.
Yeah, Garbage Truck is actually a paid actor. We literally have to pay them to come at the exact same time. So recently I've been binging on New Girl. It's a TV show. I think you can watch it on Hulu. Where and I've just been. It's like a comfort show. I've watched it before, but I guess I've been missing that like fun friend dynamic who lives in a loft together, who is doing crazy stuff. So it's been entertaining to watch. And over the weekend, I also went to Catalina Island. It was so fun. It was a 3 day camping trip and we got to explore all different parts of the island and have their iconic drink. It's called Buffalo Milk, and it was really good. So I'm planning to recreate it.
Buffalo milk. Oh my
I
god.
know, isn't it weird? I didn't know that, but buffalo is like native to the island, and I didn't even know that because before I went, I thought it was going to be like a very small island. So I was like, do they have space to have even animals? But it really does. It is a gigantic island, I feel like.
Wow. So that means that they populated the island before it broke off or separated from the mainland, and then they survived on that tiny island for like thousands and I don't know how long time.
I know. Do you have any updates or should we get on to the questions?
Yeah, I have like one more dictionary page to read about water buffaloes. No, just kidding. Continue. Oh, we could talk about the slash match template before we do
Oh,
that
that's
if
a
you
great
want.
idea.
Yeah. So since I'm here and since I worked on slash match, I might be a good person to talk about it.
What is a slash match?
So slash match comes from the idea that you're dragging from one side of the screen to the other to match two objects. And as you can see in this intro demo on Effect House, it gives you this little demonstration of what you should be doing, exactly that, slashing across the screen to match.
Carol, can you go to the screen share page? Thank you.
And so it'll auto generate this demo. So even if you replace your assets, the demo portion of the project will grab your new assets and it'll create a demo for the user before they record so that they can see kind of an example of what they should be doing. I find this a little more effective than putting text on the screen saying drag the objects. So I wanted to show people how to do something a little creative like this.
So I
Um,
see that banana, we have banana, bunny, and a dog. But I know a little behind the scenes about how you originally wanted to include a raccoon.
oh yeah, I I had to give up some of my salary to get the raccoon included.
Hmm.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, this raccoon eating the trash, it's not a globally recognized thing, but it's kind of a fun, memey thing that if you know about it, then the raccoon is kind of a funny addition.
I my personal favorite is the raccoon. I think it is very funny. But I guess if you're not from the U.S., where raccoons are roaming in the garbage cans or in the disposal, you might be like, "Why is it connected to a raccoon?" But it's an inside joke, and we love it. So please enjoy it.
um, yeah, I once saw a raccoon come out of a trash can, and I swear, I thought it was a boy with a mask. I was like in sixth grade, and I really thought that. Um, okay, so there's instructions in this tip section. You might have noticed across all templates, we've been adding these tip sections. And that's just kind of the quickest way for us to get information to you about how to use the template in the most effective way. So you also might have noticed recently with templates that we're focusing a lot more on making it easy to use first. And so we're tucking everything away into one operational subgraph with options so that you don't have to search around the visual scripting to find where to change settings. So this makes it a lot more beginner friendly so that anybody can try it. So if you haven't tried the templates recently and you tried them in the past, give it another go, and you might find that some of them are maybe more beginner friendly and don't require too much visual scripting knowledge. If you look here, there's a bunch of options you can change, and it's really fun to mess around with. I'm not going to go through all the options because that might be kind of boring, but I'll just show you. Like, I just changed the number of pair counts per page to 6 instead of 3, and now the entire game is on one page. This makes it a little more interesting and fun if your game is too simple, or if your game is really hard, you can reduce it down to less. I guess 2 per page. Don't do that. That would be a little too few. But yeah, there's tons of stuff that you can do with this. All you really have to do is replace each of these assets. So where it says like 1 bone, and the parentheses say that it matches with the dog, and then you can see on the left side we have 1 dog matches to bone. So this way you can see where they match and see that they're in the same order. That's the only thing that matters. If you want, you can also add, like, you can duplicate these 3, and now you have a match 9 game, or 9 animal match game. I wouldn't recommend this because then you don't know which battery matches to which robot if they're the same. But yeah, you can add as many as you want. You don't need just 6. So, and it'll automatically in the visual scripting find them and know which ones they match to based on the order. So that's why it's like such a great beginner one, because you can make a game without knowing anything about game development other than these options that you'll learn how to use when you first use it. Yeah, so check it out if you haven't already.
I feel like this is a very beginner friendly tutorial because all you need are the image assets. So instead of the raccoon, maybe you can do, what is something that clearly matches? I personally made a version of this game where it's testing how much Korean you know. So it's like a Korean knowledge test. So you have a list of like Korean quotes and then the English translation. And I'm testing you guys to see if you can match. So you can also use it to quiz people. I'm waiting for Duolingo to reach out to me, sponsor me. But let's say someone wanted to make an animal sound when it's matched. Is there any way we can do that?
Oh yeah. So if you look at the output of the main subgraph, we've included all of these events that happen. So when something matches, you can connect an audio sound player here, and you would just set up your sound and then you would just play.
Perfect. But would it be one sound for every scenario?
Yeah. If I were to let you play a different sound based on each of these, whatever you're matching, then we could look through these subgraphs, which are neatly named and neatly organized so that even a beginner could probably follow some of the logic. And you could maybe find where the last one that matched was, and maybe pipe that out to the output, and that would help you decide which sound to play. So if we look at this logic, the grabbed object index is going to be, that's going to be the number. So this 1 next to the dog, the 2 next to the carrot, that's what this number is going to be. So when you pipe out this on match, if you can get that value, then we can easily modify this. And now you see we have that value here. You can rename it, or you can just pipe it all the way out. And then you'll have that. And so you would make maybe a select, A select is a pretty easy way to use an index or like a number to select which object you want. Although I don't know if it has audio actually. So maybe make array. Maybe you would use switch then. So you would use switch, and then when you match, your number will decide which audio player you play. So then you have one audio player hooked up for each sound. And that could be a way to do it. And then just connect your sound to each audio player.
Yeah, that would do it.
Pretty straightforward. I did it quickly just because I know the logic, but maybe we can put out a guide, maybe a step-by-step picture guide of how to make this connection if you wanted to have the index on the outside.
I think that would be super useful. We have some questions from the chat. Cameron Clinton, who was actually the first person to join and ask a question today, said, "Hi, August. I have a priority 1 issue. When the graph gets particularly large, it refuses to save. How do I prevent this, or how do I force it to save? I lost some changes when I closed Effect House for the last time."
Oh no. I would log things like that to the feedback channels that we have in the Discord. You can look those up in, is it a specific channel, Celine, that shows all of the different feedback channels that you can report bugs and stuff?
I think you might be just able to put it on Ask Questions or put it on our forum page under new requests. I think that would be the channel that gets updated and checked the most. So I would try there. Or I think within the app, there is a button to log send a bug report. So maybe send a ticket through there and we'll check it. But in the meantime, I personally never have experienced this at the moment, but my best advice is to save often. Do you have any other super useful advice?
Yeah, so in help and submit support ticket is here at the top, but my best advice is if you're experiencing any issues, one thing to consider is that when you're working on your effect, your entire effect is running over here in this preview window on the side. And then on top of that, you also have all of these nodes rendering. This is like a whole separate thing. So sometimes when you have a lot of nodes, that's like a lot of work for your computer to be doing, rendering all these lines, rendering all the text, rendering all the placement of the nodes, and then rendering all of their logic and updating these little blue dots when they fire. So sometimes that can get kind of taxing. One thing you can do is put everything in a subgraph. So if you compartmentalize things into subgraphs, like on this page, there's so much going on, but there's only, 10 or 12 or 20 total nodes on the page that have to render. So that makes the program run a lot faster than if the whole thing was all at the top level. So always tucking things into subgraphs, that will help in situations like that. And it'll also make your project easier to read. So, I'm not saying that you weren't using subgraphs, but if you weren't, that's a great place to start.
Great advice. We have another question from the chat. They're asking, can you provide a short lesson on tracking the hand using 3D modeling? Because I'm not making an effect around the 3D model that is not fixed around the wrist.
So with AR tracking, we have hand tracking, and I'm just throwing this into the same project, but just to quickly show, our hand tracking actually is 2D hand tracking. And if you look at the distance to screen, that would be the Z depth of the screen. So that is kind of that third positional data. So if you change this, that's going to change where your hand tracker is. And your hand tracker is going to track the 2D placement of the hand. So for a 3D hand right now, it's a little hard since we don't have any way to dynamically figure out where the hand is. you can only manually set where you think the hand would be based on this. So if you have any hand tracker ideas, try to do things that are going to just follow the hand and not perfectly fit in the hand.
Perfect. We have a next question that's from our forums. Can anybody give advice on how to make the dissolving body effect in segmentation? Thanks for the advice. I'm dissolving, and they used a bunch of little cute hashtags too. Hashtag dissolve, hashtag dissolve effect, hashtag FYP, hashtag TikTok. So thank you so much, Tila, for asking this question. Maybe being able to apply a material on a 2D texture or a 3D plane?
Yeah, let's take a look. So I know we have a dissolve material. We can go to special effects and find this dissolve. And really the idea of a dissolve material like this is usually it's using some sort of noise. and that based on that noise, it's kind of randomly selecting sections to make transparent and stuff like that. So the first thing we can do is make a 2D screen image, right? And then we can add, instead of image default material, we can add the dissolve material. And we can see right away, you can see that dissolve, and then we can go into the material settings, and there's a lot of things here you can change. We're not going to worry about most of them for this, but play around with them if you want. Okay, so we have dissolve, pearl, glass, fabric. Okay, this has a lot going on. Detail albedo, we might need something like that. So I might put the segmentation texture in here. Let's make the dissolve a little bit smaller, the scale. Okay. All right, and then you could also use UV control to do maybe some more. But let's see, we'll add some segmentation in. So we have that, so portrait segmentation, and we don't really need the background. Maybe we can set our dissolve matte to this segmentation. Okay, so in the dissolve matte, now we can set the texture, and it has a cutoff, so we can use the portrait segmentation is actually a mask now. I totally forgot. It's a new change, but if you look down here, the portrait segmentation texture is actually just this mask. And when you add it to your project, we actually create a segmentation material which uses that mask. So actually, that kind of changes the approach. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. So I think maybe we would put it in the opacity texture section then, which dissolve matte, and it's on this portrait, right? I guess the opacity texture maybe uses a different pattern than this. Okay, sorry. I kind of thought that would do it. Unless we have, it looks like we actually have two dissolve materials here. So just so I'm not using the wrong one, let me just delete the other one. Okay, that was the problem. I accidentally imported it twice. Okay. So here's the one that I was changing before. And now we can see the portrait segmentation is the opacity texture, but we'll put a person with movement just in case. Okay, well, one way to do it. I would really, ideally like to figure that out, but it might need the texture more than the material for this. Let's make a fresh empty material and we'll just use some noise. And we can sample a texture 2D. And what we'll do is we will use the camera input texture for the person, and then we'll create another one, and we'll just use that mask that we made, portrait segmentation. So now that's a mask. We can use this same UV on both. And normally what you would do is you would use the opacity or the white color of the mask for the alpha of the other one. And you know, this dissolve material, I'm pretty sure it must be set to, oh, okay. It just wasn't set to transparent. Even though it looks transparent, I'm assuming it's blending with the last layer. So setting it to transparent actually makes this work. So then, yeah, I was going to show you how to make it from scratch, but we don't really need to unless you want to. But okay, we've got our dissolve material working with segmentation. Now you can see it's maybe a little not the perfect scale for a full screen thing. So then you can go back up and mess with that scale again. Let's see. So that's scale. Okay, this dissolve area affects how much of the screen is dissolved. So if you want it to dissolve, you can animate this value, dissolve area from 0 to 1, and it'll dissolve away. That's, I think, the point of this material. You can't change the scale larger than 3, though, so it's interesting. Yeah. What do you think, Celine? What would be the other things to know about this to configure it? So these just change kind of the look of it.
Yeah, maybe after we are able to add the texture back in by referring from the portrait segment. Oh no, that's just the opacity map. But after we connect it, I think we can animate the dissolve using transit by time or the time passing.
Yeah. Okay, I can do that. So yeah, once you get it looking how you want, well, in order to grab that node, you have to make sure that your visual scripting window is open, not the material graph. Set dissolve area, and then yeah, we could just do a transit by time or a timer. I preferred timer for something like this because it has less stuff on the screen. But transit by time does the exact same thing. And then you just start it whenever you want it to start. So I want it to start when the effect starts. And the duration, I want to be 1 second. And from 0 to 1.
Oh, look at that. The speed is very fast, though. Should we add more loops so people can see what is happening?
Yeah. Let's add 5 loops and make it take 2 seconds.
And maybe ping pong, so it appears and disappears.
Yeah, we can do. Oh.
Whoa. This is actually so cool. It looks like you are superhero like transition in and out.
Yeah, that's really cool. I wonder. I just want to see what happens if we manually tell this to become a larger scale. Okay, so it's hard capped at 3. That's okay. Yeah, maybe I'll personally put in a feature request to increase the maximum scale for screen space effects. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is definitely a 3D effect, so it's going to look way smaller on a 3D model. We're doing the entire screen, so when we set it to the max scale, it still looks kind of big. So yeah, there's probably a good reason to add a screen space one as well to the asset library.
T-Luck, thank you so much for asking this question. Using segmentation with the dissolved material, that's a genius and brilliant idea, and I think your effect is going to turn out amazing. I've also received similar-ish questions about how to make someone disappear from a background. Do you by chance know how to take a point from the background and put it so that it kind of makes you look invisible?
This is yeah, so are we talking about the look that's in the pigeon body
Yeah, yeah.
drive effect?
Uh-huh. For those of you
Yeah.
who don't know, there is a very viral effect by one of our ambassadors, Nuke Most, and he's created this effect where you are blurred, so you're like seamless in the background, and they use Body Avatar Drive to be a dancing pigeon. I think it's even wearing heels, honestly, and it is so funny.
Yeah, so that would be very similar to where I started here, so we can actually use the same starting point. So the lerp here, okay, so the portrait segmentation I think is black background, white. Sometimes you'll use a mask where it's transparent background, colored part of the mask. So that's the difference in that is you're just going to either use a color or alpha. So we're going to use color, I think. We can always switch later if we need to. But we're going to use that to decide whether we want A or B to render. And so anytime that anytime that this mask is 1, it will choose B. Anytime it's 0, it's going to choose A. So that if we're using portrait segmentation, that means where it's on the person, that's where it's 1. So the person will choose this B color, and so we'll tell it what to do there. And when it's not on the person, we'll select a random point in the screen and we'll just render that. So we can do this, and this is kind of basically what it is. So we'll just say 0.8 and I don't know, 0.8. We'll just somewhere in the corner, right? And then this is the camera input texture. So this RGBA color is going to be the selection when you're not on the person, right? So that's actually A. And then so this other one is going to be when you're not on the person. No, we want this to be on the person because we're hiding the person. Sorry. And then this one is going to be showing you the true background. So it's not covering up the background. It's only covering up the person. I think this will work. We'll turn this off and we'll add a new portrait segmentation. We can move this to here. Okay, so we got the background, we've got the portrait, and now we want to change the material to our empty material that we've been creating. And now you can see it's taking a random part of the background and just painting it over where the person is using that mask. A couple things that you can do to maybe improve this would be this smoothness value. Turning it up and down will change how much of that edge you see. And as you can see, it's kind of shows the outline of the person almost. So maybe you could try the opposite where you're changing this smoothness and inverting the mask. And then you can do this thing. There's a super convenient thing in Material Graph where you select 1-, and it's just a function that says 1- whatever input value. You use it all the time in Material Graph. It's great. So now we're just inverting what we were doing before. And hey, take a look. It's a little smoother because we're coming from the outside in, and it's doing the opposite thing. So little things like that could help, but it's never going to be perfect. And in fact, when there's a background, it's going to be obvious that you're masking a person out. But that's kind of the funny part of it. Yeah, I think this is pretty much exactly what the pigeon effect was doing.
Thank you so much for that. I know a lot of people wanted to create become invisible kind of effect. So this would be a good answer to them. We have more questions in our YouTube comment section. Bruno is interested in your slash match template. Bruno is asking, August, can you explain how we can increase the time of this template so that it is easier for the users?
Oh, increase the time of the template. Okay, let's open it back up. Save this project. We don't need to save it. Let's open this up. Now, I will say I think we will be updating this after we've received some feedback about the timer specifically. But if you go look in the slash match assets, currently it's a PNG sequence. So if we look at the texture sequence asset folder, we'll find these sequence assets. So the duration of the game right now is 10 seconds. And because of the way that the PNG sequence works, say if you set this to 13, it's going to readjust to whatever PNG sequence timing aligns so that a frame ends at a rounded second. And so that might, for a game like this, maybe that's not the perfect way to make it so you can set the exact time you want. But I will just show something else. So you can change that and it's going to snap to the nearest second kind of thing. If you want something different, you can import your own timer that has a higher frame rate, and maybe that will work. But here's a nice little thing. I'll save you some time. One person quiz. So for this one, I wrote a shader for the timer. And this was the first example of like, this maybe is a little more modular. You can use this anywhere. And so let's take a look at the materials progress bar material. So here you can change the color. So if we wanted to go back to slash match green, as I call it, and then you have this progress bar. Here, let's get a close up on the person. It's a little far away.
I like Runza just dancing with a little quiz on his head.
I know, but I have a little screen next to my monitor I haven't told you about that he's just always dancing there. So I've seen it a lot. He's always present on my desk. That's not true. I just made that up. Okay, so if you refresh this, you can see this progress bar, and maybe I went a little crazy. Maybe I overprogrammed it a little bit. It doesn't really need that gradient. I was just having fun, but let's check it out. It's pretty simple. And when I say that and you see a bunch of nodes, let me just explain how this whole line here is basically just creating a gradient from top to bottom. And then we're basically also taking taking that gradient and then using it in our material. So when you have a timer bar that's like super wide and like super short, it's fitting that gradient into that space. So that's why it looks so smooth, and it takes 0 megabytes in the project. It's just this tiny material. So if you want, you can take this material and basically this subgraph at this point, and you can export it and re-import it into all kinds of other projects. And when you import it into other projects, the only things that you'll need is is there a way to export materials currently? Or, okay, so this would be the fast track to, at this point in time, export a material. You would export the subgraph, and then you would just create each of these parameters. So you would just look here and you would say, okay, I'll create a progress value that's a number, I'll create a color value, and I'll create this is inverted. Or for each of these, you can hard code it into the subgraph. You don't need to expose it with these parameters. And then if you do expose it with the parameters, then you would set it by clicking the material over in this base property section. So either way, if you want to do it an easy way and you don't care, you can just copy paste the subgraph, and then you can set the values here without even creating any of these parameters. Those are the ways that you can move something from one project to another in 3.0 and above, I think. So yeah, that's a great way to make a timer bar that doesn't kind of snap to the seconds if you need it to be more precise. Oh, I guess I should show where to hook up the values into that material, right? So currently our timer is hooked up, I think, in the game phase control. Let me make sure. Okay, timer bar animation. Here's where it's hooked up. So interestingly, you would kind of replace this with a timer. So instead of the play to from, you would start, and then you have to make sure you hook everything up. So the timer also has a pause, right? So you'd also hook up the pause to both of these, and then you'd find where this goes by highlighting it. And so it's going into this if, and that's an on play end. So that would be the same as a timer completed logic wise. And then you don't need this anymore. But if you're not playing this anymore, then you're going to want to set that timer value in the shader, and that would be this progress number. I didn't bring the material over. Should I? You would essentially have your material, and you would have something the parameter to pin to the visual scripting graph and set that. What do you think, Celine? Should I go back and grab it and add it in?
I think that would be helpful.
Okay. I'll pop back over there. It's fun poking around in projects that I made over the summer. Haven't made any of my own effects with these. I really need to get on it.
Yeah, you created this amazing template.
Okay, edit material. Okay, so let's just, if you look over here, I mentioned this last week, but this is super important. If you look over here in the My Items menu, this little hamburger menu, you can see your subgraphs and click this download button. And that's a way to still export your stuff. We'll just put this here. And then now we have it. It's not too complex, but definitely didn't want to redo all of that. Now we open up a new slash match. Yeah, and we're kind of watching how people use the one-person quiz with that timer to see if we should move it to other projects. So if you like it, say something about it in the Discord or something, and vote to have this new material moved over. Or just let us know how you feel, really. Okay.
I'm voting. If anybody vote, let me know and I'll vote as well. well.
Nice. Okay, so right here, super easy change. Swapping animated texture player for timer, and we don't need access to that anymore. And we put this here, this here, this here, and this here, and then on play and also went there. So that's the same. Okay, yeah, the output. And this was, yeah, so this duration is going to be the length of your game now. So that's much simpler. Well, if we do add this, we'll hook all this up automatically. But let's say we want to make it 12 instead of 10, like I tried to do before. Now our game lasts 12 seconds. And then we could take that timer. Let's see, where is that? Timer bar. We'll just replace it. Replace the material. Oh, yeah, let's bring in our subgraph into our empty material. So create a new material. And then this is where we'll add our subgraph in. Oh. I think let's let me sort. Okay, untitled subgraph. That's why it's hard to find. Sorry about that. Okay, so now you can see we brought it right in, and basically our material is carried over. So if we put this result in the color, and then on our timer bar, we make sure to set our new material. Now our timer bar is this square. So you might want some kind of overlay, some frame for your timer. And then our color, we can make it red, I guess, or red was the old one. Green is slash match for whatever ambiguous reason. And then is inverted. You can use that if you need it to go from left to right instead of right to left. Say if you need the bar for something other than the time ticking down. And then for this progress value, this is actually where you'll set the parameter because you need to access it outside of here. So we'll choose float, which is just a number, and we'll just call it progress. So float just is a technical term for numbers. Nothing fancy going on there. Just computer terms that they decided long ago. Okay, now if we just go back to our visual scripting, now this is where we could plug it in. Empty material, we can see it right here. In the inspector, we can get progress or set progress, sorry. And here we are, progress on the timer. And that's why whenever we were making this material, that's why I named it progress, so that it matches with something like a timer, so you know where to plug it in. And then if we start the game, it's being set all the way up to 1. Wait a second. Let's go back to the material. Oh, it needs to be set as blend mode transparent or blend mode alpha test. And as you can see, it does need to be inverted for this case. So if we go to material editor, we can say is inverted 1. And we use this 1 and 0 because naturally shaders or materials don't use Booleans, true, false. So this is a way to kind of replace that. And that's a common thing across so many shaders. That's That's how video games do it. That's how everyone does it. It seems a little strange, but it's just a little different in this material world. It's material world. Yeah, and then also you could take that timer bar graphic and you can change the position, you can move it around. I think you could even rotate it. Oops. And so you can kind of do whatever you want with it. Move it around as if it's a regular asset.
That's pretty funny. I don't know why we have the convention that the timer bar has to be on top, in a perfectly in a line. Like, what if the timer bar is floating around or moving around in an angle? And if it's tipping this way, it falls down faster or whatever.
I had a great idea that just from what you were just saying right now, and I'm not going to use it myself because I have too many of my other ideas. But what if you made a game that's too hard to complete because you don't have enough time to do it? There's just no possible way.
Uh-huh.
But if you tap on the timer bar like 10 times, it keeps cracking and then it breaks, and then you can take as much time as you want to finish. And that's like the only way to
Do you
beat
know
it.
about like those bunch of mobile games where like there isn't a solution, but when you there's always a creative spin. Like when you pull on the rug, something else comes out, and you can totally solve it with what you got from that. This reminds me of that. I think that is a fantastic idea.
That would be hilarious. I'd love to see somebody do that. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's basically the full solution, and also how to kind of export materials while that's you might need to do that at some point.
Perfect. We have other questions from the chat. Pablinski, who is one of our ambassadors as well, has asked, "Hello, how could I make a plane follow the person's face, but have the plane have a pixelated material so that the part of the plane that's covering that part is blurred, but not the entire screen?"
Oh. Let's see. So you might need to use render tech, or I guess you don't need to use render texture if you use a material. Let's just check first. One thing I like to always do if I'm about to do something like this is check the asset library to see what materials and stuff are available. So if there's a material that I'm looking for that's not in here, sometimes then I make it and kind of add it to my own sort of folder where I organize stuff. And then if you aren't sure if it's there or not and you just have bad eyesight, you can type blur, and there's no blur material. Filters, face effects, screen effects. Okay, screen effects, Gaussian blur. Yeah, so be careful, check through there if you haven't already, because like something like this could be super helpful. Okay, so post effects. So it is the post processing effect actually. So we might have to use render textures, or it is a material though. I wonder if we could put that material on a 3D image. Let's see.
If that worked, that would be so epic because you don't have to know any visual scripting.
Well, that's not exactly what we wanted, but the texture, default texture, camera input texture. Okay, so we have render state 0 and render state 1. I think maybe that's the 2 passes that it's doing or something. Okay, so then in that case, what we'll do is we'll just do a post effect and put it to a render texture. So I'll just delete all this stuff and go back to post effect, custom, and then I'll do the Gaussian blur there. Now, a Gaussian blur, in case you aren't familiar, it's like kind of the most common blur based on its like efficiency and how it looks. It looks like a blur that a lot of artistic choices kind of just like match up with. And it's actually a specific version of a box blur where it's taking each of the pixels around it and averaging them. The Gaussian blur has a special weight that it adds to each of these pixels. So that's kind of where it became the most common. Those perfect weights just make it the best. Okay, so on our post-processing custom layer, we actually have the camera here. So on the object. So we will say our output is going to be a render texture that we create instead of this final output render texture. So we're going to switch it to our custom render texture. And we want to make sure that this post effect is the first thing that happens, because we basically just want that first full screen post effect. So then on this second camera that we have, we actually don't want this one right now. I just like to do this as a sanity check, create a screen image after the post effect, create a screen image, and in that image, we'll put our render texture. And this is just so we can see what that first pass did. It looks like it's just a full screen blur. Everything makes sense. Nothing's happening that we don't expect. So then now that we know that, we don't really need this 2D foreground layer. Now we can add a 3D image. And I think that's what we need, 3D image. Make sure that this is after the post effect as well, because you need that blur to happen before anything else. And then here we can put our render texture. Yeah, and we'll delete this top layer. So what we really need, instead of just the picture on a 3D image, also maybe a faster way to do it, is the face sticker, which is a 3D image already attached to a face sticker object. But we might need a custom material for this to make sure that it actually stays with the screen space. So let's do that real quick. That's a pretty simple one to make. Texture 2D. So the difference between screen coord and texture coord, we'll need both of them, is the screen coordinate is the actual pixel on the screen. Texture coordinate is the normalized value. Got this beeping truck. The normalized value on that texture plane. So like this is 0, or this is like 0, 1, and this is like 1, 1. So it defines within that square the coordinates. So what you want is probably screen coordinates here, and we'll say this is the render texture. And actually, no, I think that's all we need. So then basically this image plane denotes the area where we're going to render. And then this, we're just telling it just render that blurry image in this space. So it's kind of a mask in itself just based on where the plane is. So then if we move this in here to our empty material, which is our new like masked thing, then you can kind of blur the face. And then here is where you might change, or I guess in the Gaussian blur materials where you might change that blur amount. And then on the image itself, the transform is where you might, or the image is where you might change the size. So we could, and I like to do stretch so you have more control and you can see the control. And yeah, I think that's essentially what you're looking to do. If not, I think it's pretty far along towards what you're looking to do. You could also do some things like feathering the edge pretty easily, so it doesn't have the hard edge if that's what you want. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's pretty one step away. How do you feel about that solution? Does it make
I
sense?
think this is spectacular. If is there any way that if instead of using the 2D face sticker, if we use a head tracker and a 3D plane, would we be able to make the blur a different shape as well, like a star shape?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hello, garbage truck.
Oh god. It'll be there every time. Always on time. Um but yeah, you could do a star shaped thing. You could also like I mentioned with the texture chord, you don't even need to do 3D. You could use this approach where your texture chord goes into another sampler, and the texture that you input here is a mask. And so if it has transparency, you would use A, and you would just do another one of these, lerp. And instead of outputting just the color, you output the color on B, and alpha is the weight. And then your default color would just be fully transparent, 00000. And then you would just put this color in here. And then now you could put, let's see, do I have any? I'm just going to just drop a texture in really fast. Let's see. Let me grab one from like, I don't know, Slash Match, one of the assets. Since it has transparency, we'll do a banana shaped mask. So if I put this banana PNG, it's because it has the transparency. Keep that in mind. And then we'll put this banana here, and now you have a banana shaped blur. And our empty material, no materials start as like transparent. So if you see this, if you ever see black or white where you think should be transparency, come into your material, render state 0, and change it to alpha test. And then
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is so funny.
and that's how you could very easily just import any alpha based image. And then if you also don't want to do alpha, you can do the color. And if you have just a black and white mask and it's perfectly black and white, then you'll be able to usually use this red, because red is one of the 3 components that makes up the white color. So you can use that if it's just going from black to white. This is basically, red is the same thing as saying, white color. So you could use that as well. Since this is transparent and it's a very yellow banana, it's not good for a black and white mask. So alpha works better.
This is fabulous, August. I feel like you're dropping so many awesome tips today. The chat, people are putting banana emoji in the chat. People are saying no way with a crying face emoji. I think this should be an effect.
Should I release it? Banana
Yes,
blur?
yes, I love it. I think it's so funny how like the example that you chose, I was thinking of like a boring star shape, but then you had like a random banana emoji.
What? You don't have a banana emoji on your desktop at all times?
No, I should just have it.
Nice.
Okay,
Probably.
guys. You want to say
Sorry.
something, August?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I am glad that we are ending the stream in a very funny note. Projo AR, I saw that you asked a question, how to set blur to the full screen but fade from blur to transparent. We'll answer this question first thing in the next live stream, so don't worry, we are listening to you. But this is the end of the office hours today. I hope you guys had a fantastic day. Oh my gosh, look at that X. That's so funny. Now I'm just gonna be going around and trying all of the funniest shapes.
One more note. I just wanted to say, since I just told everybody to use alpha test will clip the alpha, meaning if alpha is like over a certain threshold, it'll be transparent. Otherwise, it'll render. That's why there was the black line at the very edge. If you switch to normal, I guess in a recent version has been taken over as like it will show transparency. So by default, it's set to none. Switch it to normal if you want to show transparency correctly. Yeah.
Perfect. August, do you think we can share this file?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. While we were, August was hard at work answering questions, I also asked around to how to add the segmentation back in the gray area. When we were doing earlier the dissolve material with segmentation, it says this segmentation style is new, so it changes a lot. The way that you can add segmentation is from the hierarchy, then render the result to a render texture, and then use that render texture as an input for the dissolve material. So I hope that was helpful if you wanted to create that. But thank you so much, everyone, for attending the live. It was so much fun today. Everybody's saying this is very Andy Warhol. Thanks, August. It's so funny. Such an interesting project. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And in Thursday, tomorrow, we have an ambassador coming out and explaining how you can create a funny tap effect using the asset library, Asset Studio. So check that out. And this Thursday, we have a material editor god, Melody. She's going to come out and demonstrate how to use the Magic 2D window template. And if you have any questions about material editor, she's also really great at answering questions on the spot. So she might be able to give you some feedback there as well. So August is now canceled. Look at the black blurred face.
What did I say? Only something obviously offensive.
This is so funny. You should publish this effect and name it canceled, because like once you're canceled, you're blurred and you can't be seen on face. Okay. Have a great day, guys. Bye.